The moment the words left the gunman's mouth, the entire office froze. "Don't move, or she dies." His voice echoed across the glass walls of the Toronto high-rise boardroom, sharp and trembling at the same time. Every executive stood frozen, every breath loud in the silence. But the man everyone expected to panic didn't move at all. The single dad sitting near the door simply raised his hand slowly and spoke in a calm, steady voice that felt almost unreal in that moment. "It's okay," he said softly, as if he were talking to a scared child. And somehow that calmness changed everything. Ethan Miller had only come to the building to fix a broken network cable. He wore a simple jacket, old work boots, and the tired look of a man who had been awake since dawn. His mind was still on his daughter, Lily, who had cried that morning because he had to leave before she woke up. She was 8 years old, afraid of loud noises, and still slept with a nightlight. Ethan promised her he would be home early. Promised like he always did, even when he knew promises were hard to keep. He never imagined that promise would be tested in a room full of fear and guns. The CEO of the company, Richard Hale, stood at the head of the table, his face pale and his hands shaking. He was a powerful man in Canada's tech world, respected and feared, but now he looked small. The gunman had grabbed the young assistant beside him, pressing the weapon to her neck. She was barely breathing, tears sliding down her face. Everyone waited for Richard to do something, to say something smart or strong. But no words came. The room felt like it was sinking. That was when Ethan spoke again. "Sir," he said gently, looking directly at the gunman, "she's terrified. You don't want that on your heart." His voice didn't challenge, didn't beg. It was calm, slow, human. The gunman's eyes flickered, confusion breaking through his rage. "You don't know me," the man snapped. Ethan nodded. "You're right. But I know what it's like to lose control when life pushes you too hard." The gunman hesitated. In that tiny pause, the entire room felt a breath of hope. Ethan took a careful step forward, hands still raised. The executives gasped, but Ethan didn't stop. "I'm a dad," he said quietly. "My daughter waits for me every day, and I promise her I'll come home. I think someone is waiting for you, too." The words hit something deep. The gunman's grip loosened just a little. The assistant sobbed, but she was still alive. Richard Hale watched in shock. In all his years of leadership, no boardroom crisis had prepared him for this. A simple technician, a nobody in his world, was doing what he couldn't. The calm, the courage, the patience, it stunned him. He realized in that moment how small his own strength had been, hidden behind titles and money. Slowly, carefully, the gunman lowered the weapon. His shoulders collapsed, and the anger drained from his face like water from a broken glass. Security rushed in, and the nightmare ended in seconds. But the silence afterward lasted much longer. People cried, hugged, and shook as if waking from a bad dream. Ethan stepped back, his hands finally trembling now that it was over. He felt weak, but he was alive. Later, as police took statements, Richard approached Ethan. His eyes were wet, his voice quiet. "You saved her," he said. Ethan shook his head. "I just talked to him like a person." Richard looked at the man's worn jacket, his tired face, and suddenly saw strength where he had never looked before. The next day, Richard personally called Ethan, offering him a full-time position. But Ethan smiled and declined. "I just want to go home early today," he said. That evening, Ethan opened his apartment door to find Lily waiting with her nightlight in her hand. She ran into his arms, and he held her tighter than ever before. In a city full of noise, power, and pressure, one calm voice had saved a life. And sometimes that's all it takes. A steady heart in the middle of fear. Reminding the world that courage doesn't always shout. Sometimes it speaks softly and it listens.